Is Nico more like Joe Milton III or Hendon Hooker, that we believe is not a second or a third or a junior or anything? He's just Hooker. I'm actually the second. But let me ask you, John, is Nico more like Joe Milton III or Hendon Hooker? We'll put that on the poll question. We'll get your thoughts in the comments. John?
I think he's more like Hendon Hooker, but against Arkansas, he looked more like Joe Milton.
Can't argue with that. Caleb, what say you?
I think in terms of his profile and ability, he's much more like Hendon Hooker. But in terms of his mentality, and I criticize Joe Milton's mentality a lot of times, he's much closer to Joe Milton. And the truth is, it's even worse because I think I never saw Joe Milton panic like that. I did see him panic to run out of bounds one time, but I never saw Joe Milton so scared that he couldn't handle a snap on the final drive of a game. I mean, that was the very definition of sweaty palms.
Okay. Guys, no. He's more like Hendon Hooker all around. I appreciate where we are here, that Tennessee did not play well. Nico did not play well. It's a great topic of conversation. But, guys, when it's all said and done, this guy's going to be much more like Hendon Hooker. Will he put up the same numbers? I don't know. But he's going to be much more like Hendon Hooker than Joe Milton, in my humble opinion.
But, Dave, one thing going into the season, I don't think anybody questions Nico's talent. He makes throws that a lot of guys in the NFL can't make, and nobody questions his arm talent. However, we didn't know how he would respond in pressure situations. He's never been in them. Every game he's played in has been one-sided. You could say, well, the Oklahoma game was not really. That was the final score is misleading there. It's not as though Tennessee was on the brink of defeat, but it was clearly on the brink. Yeah,
but John, in defending your argument, he did have 2 strip sacks in the first big challenge of his career.
Yeah, but I'm talking about that was still early in the game. I'm talking about game on the line type stuff. And throughout the Arkansas game, indecisiveness was apparent with him. Now, a lot of that's not all his fault. The coaches were indecisive too. They didn't adjust to what Arkansas was doing. You can get into the offensive line and all that kind of stuff too. But one thing I thought about Nico, one of the reasons I thought he had such great potential going into the season, his athletic ability, his running ability, his elusiveness for a guy 6'6". When things broke down around him, when things didn't go well, when the offensive tackles fanned on their blocks one after another, when the game plan was questionable, and there was no adjusting on the coaching parts, that's when you look for somebody to rise above that, the super talented quarterbacks, to make a play when the plays called aren't working. And he couldn't do that.
So let me ask another quarterback comparison question. And I want to update everybody on the poll question. It's almost exactly 50-50. Is Nico Iamaleava more like Joe Milton or Hendon Hooker? So you've touched on something here, John. My question is, have we seen enough of Nico to know that he can't be a Johnny Manziel or Tim Tebow, a guy that's just going to make a play in the clutch? Because you and I both agreed, and then you backtracked a little bit, that when Joe Milton jumped out of bounds against Ole Miss, we both said that guy's never going to be a clutch guy. Have you seen enough where you can say to yourself, I don't think Nico's going to be a clutch guy?
No, Joe Milton was more experienced than Nico. And Nico has more natural ability. So I wouldn't say that yet, but that performance raises questions. He talked about trying to explain that last play. There's no explanation for it. He talked about the ball was slipping out of his hands. A quarterback, even at junior high level, has to know the situation, the circumstances, down distance, and clock. What can he do? Nico's options were clearly limited there. His only real option was to chunk the ball into the end zone. and hope for the best. Maybe one of his guys would make a play, rise above the defense and make a catch. But to just keep drifting toward the sidelines with the clock ticking, it was a dreadful decision. And that's not, you can't say, well, he's a redshirt freshman. No, you should learn that going into JV ball.
No, to even put yourself in that position before when I think the ball slipped was not good. You got to let it go before then. Caleb, once you jump in here, John's appearance brought to you by Newbert Collision Center.
45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Newbert Collision Center.
All right, Caleb, go.
All right, guys, I'm going to pull up two graphics for you guys. Y'all have watched the ball a lot longer than I have, and you guys tell me if this is indicative of just being a fresh. The final play is inexcusable. There's no he's a freshman. You're right. That's JV ball. That's peewee football. You learn not to do that. But he missed two throws on each of the final two plays, and I want to show you guys this. I want you guys to tell me if this is just a young guy or you got to see this. And so the first one is the second to last play, and I'm pulling this up now. Do you guys see Dylan Sampson wide open right here?
Yes.
Here's Nico. Here's Dylan Sampson. If he dumps it off to Sampson, that is a touchdown. Clear as day. No one's catching him.
Okay, let me ask you this. At what point is this in the game? Second to last play of the game?
Second to last play of the game.
Okay, I'm going to sound like a Nico apologist, John, but let me throw this out there. I'm going to defend Nico in that I think he's looking downfield. Do I have an argument there? I mean, I think the last thing he's thinking is throw it into the flats with that little bit of time left.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the last option. You're asking a guy's got to make quick reads. And again, you can't eliminate the pressure factor in the decision-making process. I mean, so yeah, you look at that graphic and throw the ball to Dylan Sampson, but given the situation going into the play, I can see why he would be looking downfield and maybe not even get to that option, thinking I've got to throw the ball downfield. But then that line of thinking should have carried over to the last play when there's no option other than to throw the ball downfield. That's your best option. So he's probably thinking on this play, I got to throw it downfield. He didn't think that on the last play.
Okay, before I go to the next one, the only reason I disagree with you guys is because to not think this is an option, I'm like, okay, well then why is he even out there? Why is Dylan Sampson even running that route?
That's a fair point. Yeah, maybe he could block somebody.
Yeah, exactly. So that clearly is something that they should know about. So the next one is, and this is, so I think this one's more inexcusable, but the next one I'm going to show you, and this is much more pressure-based because you guys are right. Nico was under a lot of pressure during this one because John Campbell and Lance Hurd, and I keep saying this, should maybe consider giving their scholarship money back after how they played on Saturday. But this is when he rolled out, right when he was about to run. I'm going to move the arrow on my mouse. You guys see Chaz Nimrod right here?
Yes.
Here's Nico. Here's Chaz Nimrod.
Yeah.
If you're running and needing to make a play, you got to make that throw, right?
John?
Yeah, what are you saying here, Caleb?
Caleb, I'm having a little bit of. You're talking about in the back.
In the back corner, that's Chaz Nimrod, right?
I think that's an incredibly difficult throw across your body, but I think it also speaks to. Again, I'm going to defend Nico in this. I think it speaks to Nico has been taught not to throw across his body. I, in some ways, think that he's been overcoached. So I think he could have seen that and said, no, I never throw across my body because I've been coached not to do so.
It's the final play of the game, though. You got to make something happen. And this is
maybe that's when the ball's, I don't know. I'm not arguing that. Maybe that's when the ball's slipping out of his hand, John. I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think we get back. One of the things I like so much about Nico when I saw him in the Citrus Bowl, I thought he had great instincts. I saw that in his running when he got down on the goal line, and this passing is a different. Obviously, a different thing, but the same thing applies in a way. An instinctive type player. He didn't look instinctive against Arkansas, and part of that could be attributed to he was baffled by Arkansas's scheme, or he was trying. You say overcoached. Maybe he's not letting his ability take over. Especially in the Arkansas game, it looked as though he's thinking like, what am I supposed to do here? But because I'm seeing that in the running, it's almost when he starts to scramble, instead of just taking off, he's thinking, okay, do I want to go down here? He doesn't look decisive in his movement.
John, let me ask you a question that came up earlier in the program. Get your thoughts on this. I argue that they should simplify things for at least a game for Nico. And that when he hits that back foot, he has one read and he either goes to that receiver or he runs the ball. And he does so decisively. We've seen Nico run the ball well. He did not do so against Arkansas. And I think it's because he was unsure of everything going on around him, in part because of the offensive tackles. But what do you think of me simplifying things for Nico against Florida?
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't think he ran decisively against Oklahoma either, but I attributed that in part to a real shaky turf. The field was a mess, and he didn't look sure-footed in his running, but he looked the same way then against Arkansas. So maybe the field of play had nothing to do with it. Yeah, simplification makes sense. But then we're kind of getting away from what's supposed to be the Josh Heupel offense.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, should Tennessee go with two tight ends?
Yes.
Well, I mean, yeah, because I understand that. I mean, that makes sense in light of what we just saw. But then it seems odd to me that 3 seasons and almost 3.5 seasons into the Josh Heupel era, this offense that we thought was so spectacular, that created so many problems for a defense. It made a defense look so unsure of itself. Well, we're not seeing that anymore. So now we need to go to a simplified offense and more of a running game. So what made this program and this offense special, now we're saying doesn't really work. Isn't that a bit troublesome?
Yeah, it's very troublesome. And I think it, at the end of the day, comes down to recruiting, the lack of recruiting and offensive tackles. I think it's pretty much as simple as that. Caleb, get us a poll question update, if you don't mind. Our poll question today is brought to you by our fantastic friends who are working on one of my vehicles as we speak. Quality Tire Pros. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. All work covered by a nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd or online at qualitytirepros.com. qualitytirepros.com. Tell Bo that Off the Hook Sports and Dave said hello. What's the poll question and where does it stand right now, Caleb?
So the poll question at the moment is Nico Iamaleava is more like Hendon Hooker or Joe Milton. 54% say Hendon Hooker and 46% say Joe Milton.
Yeah.
Ouch. Does this surprise you? It's close, John?
Yeah, but based on what I saw against Arkansas, it depends on what your focus is. If you're thinking overall, you're thinking potential, you're looking back on other games, that's one thing. But when you just look at what just happened in that game, I had a number of emails on that very thing. Felt like they were watching a rerun of Joe Milton. That's not a good thing.